think it says 2 scoops on here. Oh, it says 1 scoop. I'm gonna take about 3. I like to just triple my dosage on everything.
All right. Cue intro music, even though that goes in the post edit. We don't have it, so. But here we are. Welcome. And oh, there's a little dust. Oh shit. Sorry off. Okay. So, welcome. How are you doing? Thank you for coming.
Good. Thanks for having me. This is cool.
It'll be cool once it's all done and we know we have the audio. But yeah, so hello everybody. For those of you that are watching. So today's guest on episode 2 of our podcast is Perez, Doctor of Physical Therapy. Yep. That's pretty much it. Okay, yep. Cool. So I know today a lot of people deal with different issues, whether it's through movement patterns, maybe they got injured and they have lingering issues going forward. There's so much, and a lot of people deal with pain in all sorts of different ways. And so today we really wanted to get somebody who is an expert in the field that can kind of guide us through a couple different things and give us some more ideas or where to look, and also ask some hard-hitting questions that, you know, we all want to know. But we took the sample from Instagram and we have a few questions as well as just what I would like to know about stuff like that. And then there is background noise from the other stuff. So, okay. So how about you introduce yourself? What got you into physical therapy? Where are you from? Growing up? Things like that. Like not life story, but like, you know,
brief.
Why are
intro.
you here now? What got you into physical therapy and stuff like that?
Okay. Let's see. My name is Dr. Perez. I'm a doctor of physical therapy. I also have my own practice called Solid Foundation Physical Therapy and Wellness. Over here, Irvine, California. What got me into physical therapy? So I originally wanted to be an engineer, but then I realized that the engineering lifestyle is not where I want to be. I wanted to be not in front of the computer, but in front of people, dealing with people, talking to people, helping people. And so my counselor was like, maybe you should be a physical therapist or a teacher. And I'm like, I don't want to be a teacher. I'll be a physical therapist. And so I applied to many different schools, but I ended up going back to the Philippines, where I'm originally from, to study physical therapy out there because I didn't have any money. And, you know, my money can go a lot farther in the Philippines. So I went to physical therapy school in the Philippines, came back here to work. That was over 10 years ago. And then got my doctorate in 2021, because in the Philippines, they don't have doctorate degrees. So I got my doctorate in 2021 and then started my business in 2022.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I was just going to say that's a big pivot from engineer to either educator or physical. I mean,
it is a big pivot, but also it's the way that my brain works in terms of engineering. Not that as a high school student, I was very big into math or anything like that, but it's to me, physical therapy is kind of like engineering a person, you know?
Yeah, I get that. I get that. Yeah, for me, I have a cousin that does engineering, and all I remember him talking about was math. I was like, all right, well, I'm not cut to be an engineer, but the mechanics, the biomechanics, other things like that, it's pretty fun to watch people, or the angle of rotation, like all these different things that you had, at least in the courses leading up to like my bachelor's for kines. And so you got exposure to it just a little bit, but I know that goes much further and stuff as you get further into the field. And yes, you probably saved lots and lots of money, because my only assumption is that you would still be paying off some debt right now if you had done it all in the US. So very, very smart.
And I could only get accepted to private schools when I was applying. I got accepted to UCI, but for a chemistry degree, and I'm not going into chemistry to become a physical therapist.
Well, I see a lot of like biochem majors and stuff now. That's becoming a popular thing for what was it? Just, with supplements, pharmaceuticals, like a lot of people really want to see drug use. Well, at least in certain parts of the field with performance and the other things, as well as medical, like, that is quite a big topic. So I feel like I've seen people, and I'm sure we follow some of the same people on Instagram, but, pharmacists, people that have their research, the new guy who's been super popular with cancer, I think Dr. Joey Nunzel, he's been making a name, and he discusses kind of like the mechanisms, different treatments and stuff for various cancers. Like, it's just crazy how many different like niches there are in this field, regardless. And
but then they all kind of overlap too.
Yeah. Well, and like principles seem to be the same, right? So how about now I know this is enlightening for me, but and as well as the audience, but with PT too. So there's different fields, right? Geriatrics, sports performance, general population, like things like that. Do you have a specific population that you work with, or are you all around just?
I'm in the orthopedic field, and that's, even saying orthopedic is very broad, right? I see a lot of the Gen Pop, general population mix. I used to work more in geriatrics, just seeing Medicare patients, but since starting my business, I've kind of pivoted more towards the active adults. People in their 30s, 60s are usually the people that I see, who are higher level in terms of their performance and their activities. So I don't know about specialties, but I would say orthopedic.
Orthopedic. Okay. And you said 30s to 60s?
Yeah.
I'm 30 now, so and she's done the assessment, and what is it? We're not broken.
We're not broken.
We just have a laundry list of things we need to work on. So but which is exciting.
Everybody though.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. This is going to be great because we can like go back to this podcast and be like, this was the genesis of, my comeback, right? So to say, I don't want to say it like that, but coming from 400 down to 300, and
which
now
is
feeling
amazing, by the way. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you. But feeling more capable is what I'm the most happy about. I can walk now. I want to start running. Like I just want to continue that progress. And so for me, what we've identified so far and kind of the game plan she's put together and everything for me, I'm super excited to start with, just because it's kind of that next step. And what I said in prior posts and stuff was, there is just moving to move, just get out there, be active. And now for me, it's transitioning into move purposefully with, an intent, a goal, something that, to work towards, rather than, hey, before it was, I couldn't get myself off the couch. And now it's, I actually like coming here again and I'm seeing progress. I want to keep going. So
amazing.
She will be a crucial component into my 2024 everything. So we'll hold off right there.
Class.
1 second, but it'll still keep going. So, okay. So we were back on just talking about the aspect of recovery, or no, not recovery. Sorry. We had a special guest appearance that you guys didn't get to see. Maybe next episode. Gym owner. That's a good podcast. But
that would be a great podcast.
That'd be cool. Well, and his saying is, own a gym, they said. It's always something putting out fire after fire in some ways, but he loves it and he's killing it, and he gave me a great opportunity, so I'm thankful. But in terms of, so moving forward, everything with the training, you have become kind of you'll be guiding me and stuff, kind of getting to see where I need some work and what I can do better, because my biggest thing is just making sure I improve all around, and I don't want to build on a faulty foundation, which quick plug, where do you work and everything?
Yeah.
And if you want just to I
mentioned it earlier.
Try to raise the mic just a little bit. Sorry.
Is that better?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
So I mentioned it earlier, but Solid Foundation Physical Therapy and Wellness is the name of my practice.
Okay.
And you want to start off a solid foundation.
And so with that, so we have all the questions and everything. So at working at Solid Foundation or in all the years and stuff, maybe you can slide it up to, I don't know. Like we said, we don't have $1,000 budget set up, so this is
someday soon.
Someday soon. Sponsor us, Rode or DJI or whatever, and these people too. Brought to you by eventually. So, but one of the biggest things is, as a PT, in all your years and stuff, I've seen people come through the door. What is the most common injuries that you see in issues, just for the population that you deal with?
Good question.
Mm-hmm.
Right off the bat, what comes into my head is low back pain, because I just see a lot of people with low back pain, but I think that's because it's common with every population, with every sport. A lot of low back pain, some neck pain. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I feel like a lot of the gym members in here every day just like, and I don't know what it is. A lot of people go, did I sleep wrong? Did I pull it doing something? When you look at this, so I have a very rudimentary understanding so far in terms of all this. I know we'll talk about pain and everything, but what do you think triggers, mechanisms for back pain? Like, what does it range from?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like what?
There's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, in terms of being in the gym, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because this is your environment, I think a lot of people, it's very easy to blame like a movement or an exercise. And a lot of people don't look at, okay, well, how are you going into the gym? Like, did you have a stressful day? Like, maybe that has something to do with, you know, how you're feeling going into your workout. It could also be like, maybe you were sitting all day and then all of a sudden you just wanted to like really hit a PR.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it all,
male
again,
population,
it all depends,
we're looking
right?
at you.
Yeah.
It's only the egos that come out to play. Yeah.
No, but there's so many different factors that you can look at. And I'm not saying that everything is because of stress or inactivity or sedentary lifestyle, whatever. But there are a lot of things that you can look at in terms of low back pain as to what caused it. And oftentimes it's not really a direct relationship. Yeah. I mean, that's probably the best answer I could give you there.
Yeah. Well, so I've heard, multiple things, right? Like when you are training in the other stuff, I mean, you feel a little tight the next day or something like that. And kind of assessing and seeing what is triggering it. Like I know a lot of people we'll jump into this quickly, but no pain, no gain is commonly used. Or when you see those clips of like Arnold or the old working out videos of people they feel like they're suffering. Like there's a fine line between, pain that is uncomfortable, but it's growth, and you can distinguish between the two, and then pain of like, ooh, like something's lighting me up, whether it's, a gripping pain, an ache, like a shock, right? I've heard, so this is where we can get some clarity, but some of my mentors and stuff, they've talked about how back pain resolves itself, like after a couple days, or a lot of people without any intervention, giving it a couple weeks and stuff. Back pain can come to resolve itself, so long as you either don't do the thing that triggered it, or two, something like, I think there's panels, right? It could be structural, psychosomatic. I have a client that gets stressed all the time, and every time she's above a 6 on the stress scale, she's like, oh man, my back hurts, everything like that, and it just keeps progressing. And so I think it's just one of those things of like distinguishing. Do you feel like if we are just somebody here that's just, we'll just say your everyday average Joe just comes in, they work out, my back hurts. Would you just say, based off, maybe we assume they were just doing wrong technique, they didn't have good control of their pelvis or anything like that, and it was just, kind of letting them know? In the following days, are you saying, hey, let's keep moving though? Movement is medicine type thing? Or are we saying rest and relax? Or it depends, right?
Yeah. That's a very good question. I think pain is very misunderstood by a lot of people, and it makes sense because pain is very complex, right? But pain is not always a bad thing. So if we kind of go back to, I guess, understanding what pain is basically your body's way of communicating, right? So I'm not going to go deep into the pain neuroscience just because of the audience, but if you have pain after a workout, for example, you don't automatically think that, oh, I can't move, that means that I hurt myself at the gym. Most often than not, you're probably going to think that, oh, I did a great workout yesterday, so I'm sore today. You know? Yeah. And so it also depends on like the person, because if you're someone who's like afraid of the pain, then you're probably not going to go back to the gym. Or if you're not experienced at the gym and you like worked out one day, just tried it out, and then the next day you woke up and you had a lot of pain, you're probably going to be afraid of it, right? But if you're someone who's like very used to that heavy lifting, and knowing that you will have pain tomorrow, which is not always or shouldn't always be the case, but for a lot of people who do that, they have pain the next day, they know that it's a normal process. They know that it's part of kind of that world. So I think it just depends on that person, their understanding of pain, their relationship with pain. And then if you're just talking about the average Joe, knowing what to do when they're in pain, you kind of have to have like a checklist of, okay, did I follow a program? Like, did I work out according to the program that I have? Do I even have a program? Most people don't have a program, but then it's like, did you warm up before your heavy sets? Did you stretch? Did you different things? Maybe did you do a mobility prep before your workout? Were you stressed that day? Did you sleep well? How was your nutrition? Did you do, I don't know, deadlift day back to back? Different things like that.
Volume.
Yeah.
All those things. Yeah.
All those things. They all matter. And I think when you go about it in a sense that like, again, going back to that fear, I think I would never tell a patient to stop moving. That's just my practice. Like unless I feel like they have something like a red flag or like a fracture somewhere, I almost would never tell someone to stop moving. Whether it's light walking or maybe don't go and try to get a PR today, but maybe do some accessory work instead. It's just my approach. And so I think that was your question, right? Like how can an average Joe tell if the pain is like telling them to rest or not?
Right. Or you made a good point with somebody who is brand new to the gym, does not know how to discern between what is DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness for beginners, or what is, maybe I tweaked something there because I don't know the correct, like I don't have the best motor control because I'm learning to do these things. But we also see on the other end of the spectrum, people that abuse frequency, volume. You see how many guys, look at every one of you, like I think majority of my audience is male in my Instagram, but how many dudes are like, I hit a PR, let's stack 20 more % onto the bar. It's like, you just hit a PR. Why do you think you should go do this? And, you know, it's that fine line between, great, you chased it, you got it, and hey, now you're going to be set back a whole lot more. But I know, and I feel like this is something as a trainer throughout the years, and what I got to see with my internship for strength and conditioning was just move, no matter what. Like every day that you are pain free is kind of another like dollar in the bank for resilience, but as well as when you have a client who maybe has never explored being in a full ass to grass squat, and maybe it's annoying to them, or we find a variation of a movement like a goblet squat or something that somebody can do without pain, somebody can do, but we can still train it, because I think there's still quite a bit of value in trying to get somebody to move. And if you don't use it, you lose it, right? That's kind of the name of the game, I think, in performance and just general with
Everyday
life.
life,
So,
yeah.
but okay, so back pain is the most common thing you see. With the neck pain, does that have anything to do with like postural stuff, where we're seeing a lot of people like the tech neck type stuff?
Yeah, I would say so, but nowadays my opinion on posture has changed in a sense that I see a lot of people with horrible posture and they don't have pain. So why is that? Right?
Sorry.
Like, it's not always, again, like I said earlier, it's not always a direct correlation as to what causes pain, because pain is complex. There's so many different reasons why someone would be in pain. But I think it's I wanted to add from the last question too is when you have pain, I think instead of being afraid of the pain, or instead of thinking that something is horribly wrong already, I think pain, when you have something that your body's telling you, I think it's good to use that as a cue to check in with yourself. And I see for a lot of people with neck pain, most often than not, I'm not saying that everybody is this way, but it's more stress related than posture related. Like, if I'm going to pick, something to point my finger at, I'm going to point my finger at stress more than I would point my finger at posture.
Okay.
But again, it's complex.
Do you think, so I remember hearing this a while back, was there's types of breathing, and we'll get into that in a sec, but shallow, your tidal breathing, other things, breathing through your diaphragm, breathing through your chest. A lot of people, and what I was told long ago, this is something new, I'm sure, as we hash up my history and stuff, but in like 2017, when I first went to a PT and stuff, they were like, you breathe through your chest a lot, and you talk so fast and everything like that, you're starting to, the scalenes, the muscles in your neck are starting to get a little tense and tight. And so that shallow breathing and stuff could be leading to tension headaches, could be leading to, pain or the other stuff the way it is. Yeah. Do you think that's something right there? Like, or I know, because the breathing mechanics up here with the musculature, I was like, oh yeah, that sounds like it might make sense. But
I think there's some merit to that, just because I see this a lot with people who has neck pain as well, and who are highly stressed, that they are shallow breathers. Not necessarily saying that they're just breathing from their chest. I don't really know what's happening there, but a lot of times they do talk fast. They like don't. It's almost as if you're asking them, like, how do you breathe with how fast you're talking? And maybe that's what that PT saw when they did your assessment back in the days. But I do think that in terms of the body, how breathing affects your nervous system. So if you're able to slow down your breathing, then you can affect the way that your nervous system is responding. So,
well, you told me that was a big deal, right? Like, before we did the other stuff, lay down on the bench and really deep breath in.
Let's just try to slow you down. Let's just try to see if we can tap into that relaxation before you even start.
Everybody's so go, and this is funny enough. You'd think you need to get amped for a workout, but because if you're so on edge or the other stuff, it could actually impede.
I think it depends. Like, being amped is a great thing. So I think if you're someone like me who's just always like slow, maybe I need to get amped.
I'm slow and fast at the same time. I speak too much and think too slow. I don't know. Yeah.
Same. So I think it depends. You just take a look at a person that's in front of you. Take a look at what they need. And if you think that there's someone who's just in overdrive all the time, then you try and slow them down a little bit. If you think there's someone who could use a little bit of amping up, then you try and amp them up a little bit.
Yeah. So it's very contextually dependent on.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So there's no blanket statements here, no black and white. Like, again, do your due diligence and finding different things and analyzing yourself, but going and finding the right help, obviously. So, okay. That's, yeah, because what we're seeing too, even though I had an idea of coming in what might be wrong, and I knew there was something wrong with my toes, the other thing, but then you going through different tests, different assessments, and you're starting to see different things, and it's like putting together pieces of the puzzle. And I think a lot of people, what's the most frustrating about everybody's individual pursuits is, oh, I just, once I unlock this door, it's good. And it's like, well, it's more like the puzzle of like, hey, I'm trying to find this piece to match it here so we can get the better overall picture. And
and also I wanted to say too that it's not, I think, looking at it differently in a sense that you're not broken. Like, you remember I keep telling you, you're not broken.
Right.
This is not, it's not that there's something wrong with you. You just have different strategies that is not helping you at performing whatever it is, whatever activity you want to perform. And then maybe we just need to give you back different strategies, or like give you more variability as to how you can do things better in context to that activity.
Yeah. Okay. So
I think it's important. I think I think our language around pain, our language around our bodies are very important in a sense of how it affects your mood, how it affects how you see yourself, how you perform.
Like if you took a group of 100 people and somebody who deals with chronic pain day after day, that isn't like a 1 or a 2, like a mild headache, but something more debilitating, I'm sure they would say their quality of life is on average much worse than somebody who either doesn't. But it's just funny how this all plays in too, right? Being constantly amped, being constantly like on edge or stressed, like it feeds into the same thing, and then everything.
And it becomes a cycle.
Yeah.
And
then this is why you're here. I've enlisted you to help me break my cycle and stuff. So we're going through that. How about references? Who do you look up to? I know we talked about Lorimer Moseley.
Yeah, right? He's a great guy to follow. So Lorimer Moseley is Australian. I think he's a physiotherapist from Australia, and he is also a researcher on pain science. That's very, very smart person. He has a book called Explain Pain that he wrote with Dave Butler. And then he also has, I think his other book just came out. I forgot who the other author was, but it's called Pain Perception or something like that. I haven't read it. So I want to read it soon, but I think it came out like a couple of years ago.
Okay.
So Lorimer Moseley, in terms of pain, are you asking about?
Like who would, if say somebody doesn't have access to a physical therapist or the other stuff, but they really want to enlighten themselves and understand more about what could be the triggers or the mechanisms, the catalyst for why they experience certain things, what would be good books that you recommend, or people? So like, you know, Lorimer, I don't think he's active. I don't think he really has an IG, does he? But I know
no, but there's a company there. Yeah, there's like, you can find him on YouTube. Like if you just YouTube Lorimer Moseley, he's done a lot of talks, and I know that he's working in a company. I actually don't, I'm not actively following him or the company, but the company is called NOI Group. NOI Group. Yeah.
Cool. Any other references?
Any other references? Well, I gave you some books.
Yeah.
And these are more about like how the body works in relation to pain, stress, trauma, all that stuff. I don't know if you're asking in terms of physical therapy or
I guess just for like if we're talking to the average person and they want to know more about it. Maybe they know somebody who's hurt. Like obviously we're always going to say seek out professional help. But you know, people that are just kind of, you know, curious, right? And they would love to know more, or like my mom dealing with pain a lot and stuff. And was it chemo? Was it cancer itself? Like different things. Whereas somebody, hey, ever since you rolled your ankle and something hasn't been right, it always hurts when you walk a certain way and stuff like that. But kind of identifying different things, or I mean, there's just so much to unfurl with physical therapy. So it's tough, but I guess for me, the question, I'll frame it as this. Who do you look up to in the field of physical therapy
Okay.
for what you would like to when you're trying
Yeah.
to gain more knowledge?
So I have a lot of mentors. Right now, at this current moment, what I'm working on improving more of the performance side of physical therapy in my practice, because I am classically trained manual therapist. So I did a lot of manual therapy initially. And then I realized that manual therapy is not enough. So I kind of went more towards the performance side of things. So like exercise prescription, corrective exercise, that type of biomechanics, that type of stuff. So just so I can give you context as to why I follow these people now. Dr. Andy Chen on Instagram, he's one of my mentors, really, really good person. And I think I learned a lot in terms of biomechanics, how to assess someone and how to prescribe exercises based on those assessments, how to regress and progress different exercises from him. And then there's also a lot of really, really good PTs in the field. Dr. Jen Barbroni, I think is her name, Jen Health. She's also very popular on Instagram. Initially in my practice, I followed her because she was one of the OGs of social media, physical therapy world. I really like her approach. I feel like I'm forgetting a lot of people, but
That's okay.
you know,
We can put it in post-op. We'll just have a little list that just goes up. Yeah.
So following Dr. Andy Chen's mentorship, he also take a lot of different courses. So he introduced me to David Gray Rehab on Instagram, Matt McInnes Watson, which is the plus plyos guy that I told you about. That's if you want to dabble into plyometrics a little bit more. David Gray is more on like the biomechanics. And then in terms of programming for just physical therapy programming, Joshua Lee Clay, he's not a physical therapist, he's a trainer, but I've been learning a lot from him as well. And Kilo Strength Society. Yeah,
Kilo Strength is a big.
They're really, really big with programming. I just recently got introduced to Kilo Strength. There's also one more person in mind. I'm trying to think who it is. Can't remember.
It's okay.
But
if they know you, they're going to be really upset. You forgot the little people, man. What the heck?
No. They're gonna come back to me, and at the end of this podcast, I'm gonna be like, okay,
we'll be
all these
midway
people.
through like diagnosing something or breaking something down. So like,
and also like talking to the different people in my world. When I go into these different courses, continuing education courses, I meet people who are like just very smart people, right? And you talk to them and you just become curious as to, okay, what are you working on now? And then you kind of follow each other. And then if you're struggling with a patient, for example, you just talk to someone and ask them, okay, what do you think about this? Because I really want it to be like a collaborative space in terms of like asking other people for help instead of being like egotistical about it and be like, I'm the best PT out there, because I know I'm not.
Well, and that's the thing, is having the humility. I think everybody in their field, we talk about the Dunning-Kruger effect, like, and having that little arc and everything where, you think you know everything, you think you're hot shit, and then you're either really humbled by, some embarrassed, like you were embarrassed in some way, or there was an answer you couldn't figure out and you realize like, oh, wow, and I think a lot of people in the field, or at least a lot of PTs I've met, are pretty humble, I'd say. Because there's just so many methods and different things you can apply, but it's nice when you find a PT that's like specialized in something, because that's been their wheelhouse, and for years they've done it. So when you run into a roadblock or something, like at least they have kind of like, hey, we've been through this before. I could tell you, like, you would never want to be like, hey, you just came fresh out and you're like, okay, I I'm working on something and I have no clue. I can't remember this from schooling or clinicals or whatever. And then you go to see somebody who is a specialist in low back pain.
Yeah.
And you find something new where it's like, oh, I never thought of it like that. Or they give you that analogy or a cue or something where you're like, wow, that's like that little light bulb moment of when I go forward now, this makes a world of difference for me. So I can help treat other people.
And every physical therapist will be different too.
Mm-hmm.
Like you can have two people with the same experience. Maybe they took the same courses, they have the same training, but then they function very differently.
Yeah.
Because it's their style. It's the way that they see things in their lens. And it might work for some subspecialty of people. And if not, then you refer out.
But yeah, I'd say I've seen about 4 different PTs, 5 different PTs throughout the years. And I would say every time I've never seen the same stuff, other than maybe some manual therapy,
Mm-hmm.
like trying to manual manipulations, like adjust me, or they take the daisy chain and they move me. And then I'm all self-conscious. I'm like, man, I'm so large. Like this must be tough for them. A tough day at work. But at the same time, like I see all just kind of I always thought it was just really, this is what it is. This is how you approach it. Like, and then you hear like, so-and-so does this, so-and-so does that. And that's why we have the segment coming up with cupping or myofascial release, deep tissue, like all these little things. And
you also like people in general, humans are very complex organisms, right?
Mm-hmm.
So treatment is going to also be very complex.
Yeah.
The more I learn, the more I realize that there's so much that I don't know about people, about humans.
Mm-hmm.
And it's humbling in a way, because it's like you think that what you're doing is working when maybe it's just time, or maybe,
Well, the other
like
thing
that.
too, like the psychology behind a lot of this too, like gassing people up to make them feel good.
Yeah.
And maybe it's not even stuff we're doing. It's just the placebo, or it's amazing to see what happens when you change your frame of like your mindset and
Mm-hmm.
you get into a good line of thinking or in good thoughts and kind of like, it's just so funny when I'm super stressed. I see how everything becomes domino effect and it turns to shit everywhere. I'm like, wow. And then on a really good day, it's like, I didn't notice any pain. I didn't notice this. I didn't notice the little things. So
when you're feeling good, you barely notice any pain.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing. So day to day and stuff like that, you see a lot of people come in. I'm sure you deal with a lot of people that are happy, a lot of people that are frustrated, a lot of people like my grandma that just want to, every day they're like, let's throw hands, let's pick a fight. Like they don't, they just do it because that's their style.
Yeah.
When you see people come through the gym and everything too, in terms of stuff people are doing in the every day, like, so you talked about movement prep.
Mm-hmm.
For a while, I've been pretty lazy, but I've been trying to justify saying, if I want to warm up, I will do that exercise at a very light load and warming up.
Mm-hmm.
And you made the point of, well, then why are we dealing with stuff we're dealing with right now? Like something has to change, right? And the meathead in me was, I don't want to change. I just want to practice the lifts. I don't want to do cars, control, like all these things. I don't want to do other things, but there's something. And I remember seeing stuff where I think a lot of people don't realize this, but weightlifting is loaded stretching in a sense, like, right? Like you touching your toes on the ground, reaching down stuff, you're stretching your, well, depending where and how much mobility you have. But when you load your hands down stuff, now you have an external load that is also pulling you down a little bit and is helping you get down there. And I try to think in my head, how do I incorporate stuff to be lazily stretched into the position and get me into a certain position and stuff like that. So I'm always trying to figure out different things, but let me just circle back. What do you see most like people in the gym like that do, it's in my notes right now, that you see them doing every day that might be a little overrated? Like, is there certain things where, you see people just mess around with the resistance bands way too much, or somebody, I mean, we see people hang upside down on the cable machines like Spider-Man, and
I mean, honestly, like, I'm not going to tell someone that what you're doing is overrated or what you're doing is wrong. If they're enjoying whatever it is that they're doing, go for it. If I were to pick something that maybe not everybody's doing, but I think might be overrated, is passive stretching.
So like same as static stretching, right?
Right.
Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah. So sitting there in poses for very long periods of time.
Yeah, and I think there's some benefits to that. But in terms of getting ready for a workout, I don't think that's the way to go.
Okay.
I think it's better if you do like active dynamic stretching or different movement preps that might not be stretching, but you're warming up. Like plyometrics is a really good warm up. Just more movement and getting your tissues ready to accept load more than just passively statically stretching them.
Okay.
Yeah.
You picked a very low hanging fruit because I'm right there too, where I see these people start off on the yoga mat and you know, like again too, if that gets you in the right mindset and you feel prepped and warm and ready, go for it.
Yeah.
You know, and then we try to have a nice mix of anecdotal and what the research suggests. And I agree with you, dynamic movement and movement prep beforehand and stuff is probably a little more beneficial for most people that come in when they start to work out and stuff. But there's nothing wrong with getting a little yoga flow on or getting yourself in check, getting your breathing right, because I know yoga is also about
and even yoga is not all yoga moves is passive.
Right.
So they don't always hold the poses for a long time. Like I think holding the poses for a long time is really, really good meditation. But like yoga flow is dynamic, you know?
It's tough too.
It's hard. It's fun.
I had a friend, this might be a little short form content, but and I don't know if he even remembers, but it was me and a couple of my buddies that went to one of those yoga classes at 24. We finished our workout. It was around the time they were doing football and stuff. And we just wanted to get more limber. Like, I guess that was it. It was like, do all that. Well, they had Taco Bell before. And so you already know what's happening, but we were kicked out of the class. And ever since then,
you were kicked out of the class.
I got kicked. Well, it wasn't me who ripped ass. It was him. And I think it was because they thought it was deliberate. Like they thought it'd be funny, but we were about 30 minutes in. So you would know, like, if we were there to, you know, fuck around, we would have been kicked out.
Yeah.
And we were doing, you know, a downward dog or something. The one where you're in the pyramid shape, where you're like touching, but your legs are in contact, looks like this. And yeah, my buddy just ripped one. And it was funny because there was probably about 50 people in the class. And the lady said, "Sir, this is not the time nor place to be doing that." I was like, you know how many people have probably gone in and, you know, been gassy or something? Like,
yeah, it's
natural. Yeah. But we got kicked out. And then I was like, you know what? Maybe that's a sign yoga is not for me.
No.
So, and like I said, I've been trying to cheat my way into passive positions, like deeper ranges of motion with weights rather than being like, well, I should just sit here on the mat and try to do X, Y, and Z. But okay, so that's pretty good. We're rolling through the list. And then we might have another tour coming through.
Okay.
So no I might just jump on real quick. BJ just said. So yeah, I guess today's a busy day and stuff. It's almost a weekend, so that's why.
Okay.
But are you good? Everything's
We're good.
Okay,
yeah.
Cool. Not too bad, right? It's good. I'm trying to tell a story, break the ice. So let's do this. So I'm gonna just turn on everything, or I'll just turn on the red one, and then we should be good. But we'll just talk until we hear the door open. And I'll just do that. But okay, so we're back again. We're just in and out. With that, Sue, what do you think most people are missing in their day-to-day that would have a lot of carryover? Like, what do you think a majority of the people in the gym that are coming in, what's something they could implement or learn
in the gym?
Or just in general, active individuals, you know?
Yeah. Walking.
There you go. I know my mentor is really big on a 10-minute walk, 2 to 3 times a day, whether it's after a meal and stuff like that. Well, any reason or just, hey?
I think it's a very easy exercise to do that not a lot of people do.
Yeah.
I think California might be different because people walk a lot in California, but in general, I find that less people are walking.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and we
like,
see like constant stuff with, I know there was that really popular meta-analysis that came out a couple of years back showing casein, the more you walk, the longer you live. Eventually it got to a point when somebody was getting like 18,000 steps on average, then it started to curve down. I was like, okay, so you're telling me there is too much, as with everything, right? But I just remember seeing that, and you know, a lot of these people have these arbitrary like goals of, I need to get my 10,000. Why do you need to get your 10,000? Is it relative to what you have been doing, right? Like for myself or somebody that you work with that's probably a larger client, maybe 2,000. They don't average more than 2,000 a day. So for them, telling them 10,000, that's 5 times their workload. They're going to experience issues, overuse injuries, all these things. So, but I do say, very low level to entry, right? Or barrier to entry is very low, super easy. So you heard it here, not just from a trainer, but also a physical therapist. Walk. It's the easiest thing. And you can make it mindless too. Listen to this podcast. Watch this podcast. Listen to your favorite music, your band, audiobook. Like I love seeing people at the gym when they have their phone up on their like bike or something, they're pedaling. It's like good. Like you're killing 2 birds with 1 stone. You're getting in, you're doing this, you're active. That's solid.
Yeah,
so,
you're doing something.
Yeah.
You're
and
learning
then
too.
Breathing, over or underrated? That's the only one I'm going to hit you with because I know everything depends. But
yeah, I was
we
going to say
talk
it
about
depends.
Shallow breathers, and we talk about there's the other end of the spectrum where people are like, I'm zen. Like, we should have done it before the podcast. Big breath in and stuff. But do you think a lot of people, I feel like the more I come to see everything as I go through this, the more I realize you should be practicing, whether you consider it routine, meditation, all that stuff. But breathing something, it's huge.
Yeah, I mean, for me, breathing is huge, but it's not everything. It's hard when you have someone who's very much into breathing and they feel like breathing is going to solve everything. Because it won't. Yeah. Like I use it a lot as a movement prep, or if I have someone who's in really, really bad shape in terms of pain, I try to regulate their nervous system by just having them breathe for like 5-10 minutes to start. And then we can, when they're feeling a little bit better. I mean, I've made crazy changes in the before and after photos just from breathing alone. And I'm not saying that I do that all the time, but it depends on the person in front of you. If you have, like, for example, for you, I had you breathe for like maybe 2 minutes and then we went on to do exercises, right? So I think breathing is important, but I don't think it should be everything.
Okay. And the only reason I even say it was I feel like I get told more often than not, just breathe, the other things. But, there's a book called, I think it's Breath.
Yeah.
It's called that.
James
Have you read
Nestor?
Have you?
Is it the correct? No. Is that the correct author? I've read it. I forgot who the author is. It's so good. Yeah. I love that book.
Was there a lot of
I have it too, so I can.
Oh my God, my list is just growing. I know you guys can't see, but between us is this little shelf with books, and she just added 2 to my collection. And now I have to find what to trade her. So I do like the Hungry Brain, though. That might be a good one. And then the rest are kind of like some books from college and stuff, where it's like it looks sciencey, it looks fancy. We're the poor man's Huberman and Atia and Dr. Rhonda Patrick, all that. This is us. We're like the watered down, We're the what's it called? What's that one that not off Amazon but Alibaba or something? Like the one or the ship, the Wish. Remember, it takes like 2 months to get it. Yeah, Temu or something, where it's like you'll get it. It'll just be 2 months later. It's going to be a quarter of the size.
No, we're better than that.
Yeah, we're better. We're working 5-star reviews on the podcast. It'll help us immensely. But okay, cool. So it's good, but it's nothing like, hey, life.
Yeah, I think it depends on the person. Again, look at that person in front of you and see what they need. I've treated some people in the past who really needs to have some breath work in their lives, and who just don't want to do it.
Right.
Or I've asked them, like, have you tried breath work? Because I feel like you would benefit from it. And they would say, yeah, I've tried it. Didn't work for me. I think a lot of people, they think that breath work is like foo-foo, right?
Like hocus pocus. Like,
right.
Yeah.
It's honestly, I don't think it is. Like, there's a lot of science that goes into it with like your rib cage mobility, with the chemistry that happens with pressure, changes of pressure in your body, how it affects your pelvic floor, different things like that. We're not going to get into too deep today, but there's a lot of benefits of breath work that many people don't understand. They just think, oh, you just need me to relax. I tried that already. Didn't work for me.
I feel like people, humans, are too stupid and not as shot at anybody, but I think a lot of people think they know what they need from themselves, but yet do not realize how easily conditioned they are. Like the behaviors,
I'm
drilling,
guilty of that.
positive, negative. It's, it's why you'll see people maybe overweight and the other things outside of genetics, and everybody's different. But I really do think, like, we think we're too smart for ourselves, and we do not kind of disassociate between what our brain is and what we are, like, as a consciousness, like, and just realizing, hey, every time I realized after I'd play video games, I'd go eat food or something like that. I was like, I'm just having this reward feedback loop for bad behavior. And this is just becoming a perpetual cycle of over and over and over. And now here I am. And in reality, I should have figured out other ways. But it's funny because we go, you train your dog, you train your pets, and you think, oh yeah, like fetch, sit down, shake. Can you give them something? Sit. We're kind of similar to that. I mean, I know we can talk. I know we can do a lot of other things too. Like sentience is more there. Sounds like a Rogan podcast or something, right? But just those little things of like, okay, these are something to be aware of when you're kind of taking an outside or approach from looking on the outside in and seeing that. So with this, with injuries, with breathing, all the other things too, we're going to what people do outside of getting physical therapy done, and that is orthopedic procedures. I know so many people, surgeries.
Okay.
Yes, I know so many people in my life that have gotten knee replacements, the other things. It was touted on a podcast probably a year or so ago, and it made its rounds on social media, but it was somebody making the claim that 80% of orthopedic surgeries that people elect to get could have been prevented. And there was one method of do your own virtual surgery, where it was the program that's put into place. I found out the other question I was going to ask you, damn it. But I'll get back to it in a sec, because it tied into the other stuff. But the surgery that was put into place, or the program you would have followed following the surgery, do that first. And if that gives you any, relief, any benefit, any relief, then maybe surgery isn't for you. But pause.
Exactly.
In fact,
Say that.
We should have just said we broke down this podcast and we went to go do a 10-minute walk and we came back. Practice what you preach, right?
Variability of movement. Maybe besides walking, from your question, people are not doing enough of. Was that the question? I forgot. But like something that people could be doing more.
Yeah, like what's something people could be throwing into their mix, whether it's activity or something beneficial for their physical well-being.
So my answer earlier was walking. I'm also going to add taking breaks in between, like work, for example. If you're sitting on a desk, making sure that you're like taking breaks, whether it's to go to the bathroom or to do your whatever, talk to your coworker, something like that. Just taking breaks.
I feel like when I was doing the traditional 9 to 5 with working at a computer, you know how you get up after 2 hours and you're like, oh man, like it feels like nothing was turning right, nothing was good. And then I would do walks, and now I've become just very committed to not the 10,000 steps, but just making sure I'm active. Like I look at 10,000 steps of like, hey, I was moving enough for the day, and I'm here in the gym, we're in the back, we do that. But I really think it's important. There's a few studies to like postprandial release of blood sugar and the other things, aka just walking to lower your blood sugar after very helpful after a meal. Yeah, especially for people that deal with metabolic disease and stuff, that might be a really big kind of not a game changer, but very helpful in kind of making sure you mitigate the effects of stuff you did. If you were sedentary, or say it was a slice of cake, obviously macros and stuff go down differently. Fattier and protein stuff might not as much, but just little things like carbs and the other stuff, or being mindful if that is what you are dealing with with your condition and stuff. So, but I know we were saying procedures, orthopedics, everything like that. Do you think that's true that, 80% of people that elect to do orthopedic surgeries, they don't really have to do them?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know what the actual number is. I'm sure there is researchers who's looked into that.
Yeah.
What I do know is that most people, at least some of the people that I've seen, would probably get an orthopedic procedure before. Not most people, many people, and I've seen this in my practice, have gotten surgeries before they even see a physical therapist. And to me, that's problematic.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be a physical therapist. It could be a trainer, or it could be someone like just to help them try and conservatively treat whatever issue they're dealing with before they even go get imaging or go get surgery or go get injections right away. I think in our Western society, we're very fast into getting surgeries. I agree with that. I don't know about 80%, but I agree with what that person said about how we're over-treating, over-medicalizing a lot of these things. And I think, well, there's a movement in the physical therapy world. It's called PT First. And basically the idea is to get physical therapy, because right now the model is that when you have some type of pain, or if you have some type of problem, issue, you go into your doctor, and then you get an X-ray or MRI or whatever type of imaging, and then maybe they refer you to a PT, and then you go back to your doctor, and then you get surgery.
Yeah.
And then you go back to the PT.
It's kind of
so it's kind of flawed. So the PT First movement, what they're recommending is that maybe you see a physical therapy first who can do the assessment for you, take a look at, because you see a PT for like an hour for my world. Not all PTs are an hour, like in the insurance world. Maybe it's like 15 minutes you see a physical therapist, but your evaluation at least would be an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, even with insurance. So if you're comparing that to going to see a doctor who won't even touch you, you see that doctor for 5-10 minutes, they won't touch you, and they refer you to an imaging right away. It's just very it's kind of a waste of time to do that first, as compared to going to physical therapy first. Maybe that physical therapy can refer you to a doctor if they see any red flag. But if it's something that they know can be fixed by conservative treatment first, then you didn't waste your time, going through all that. And then sometimes too, like with imaging, kind of what I was alluding to earlier, what you see in an image, like an X-ray, for example, doesn't always equal what that person is showing in terms of their symptoms.
This is
Is this your next question?
Well, no, I was just going to say one of the spine specialists, I forgot who, they were talking about radiology and stuff, and when people look at these scans, and here is a world record powerlifter versus a ballerina, and you watch and you see how many little like microfractures, how many different things, and you would think this person must be in agony every day. They don't experience a single bit of pain. And then there's a ballerina where the demand of their sport or whatever they do, occupation, et cetera, she's much more limber. She can get in all these little different positions. I think they were saying there's more collagen. I don't know what it was, but just saying like it's a night and day difference. And to just label it as, from what I see, because I see these holes, I see this and that, you're injured. And it's like, no, I'm fine. In fact, or whatever, why they're getting scans, who knows, right? They probably are injured for something. But seeing those things, but also you had mentioned too, having people go to the doctor. I feel like, right now there is not a good, there isn't much advertisement or like a PSA for telling people like, hey, if you have trouble with your eating, you have disordered eating behaviors, or you're trying to get better and stuff with your life and all these things, maybe you should go see a dietitian. Hey, if you are dealing with sickness, like a mass on your arm or something like that, go see a doctor. If you are dealing with knee pain, some shoulders, something at a joint and stuff, chances are it could probably be more physical therapy. Who knows? But have a physical therapist see you first and then go in. Just because I know we've all heard that doctors only get 1 unit of dietetics and stuff for nutrition and everything in med school.
Yeah.
I wonder how much it is in terms of movement anatomy, assessing stuff, because you'll get a lot of people, and I'm sure everybody that's listening has heard it before, of I go to the doctor and I was like, hey doc, my arm hurts every time I do this. And they go, well, don't do that. I was like, okay, well, this is kind of essential for a lot of shit. Maybe I should figure out a way to do that.
Yeah.
And so,
and this is not a diss on doctors, right? Right. They're amazing at what they do, and they're very important.
All traits,
right?
And they specialize in every little thing.
Yeah,
which is nothing wrong. We hold them in high regard. It's just there needs to be a little bit more information being spread on what you should look for in terms of when you're dealing with certain ailments.
Yeah.
Maybe you should go here first. This might be your best bet. And then you kind of do the crossing out stuff. Just being like, all right, well, we went there. That mass on my arm was not gout or something that I couldn't do. It was a tumor that I need to get removed. So now it warrants going to see the doctor.
Yeah. And I think too, like, it's almost delegating the load. Mm-hmm. Because if like doctors, I think, are overworked in general, and maybe we're going off on a different topic here, but if you take the load off the doctors and push all the people who probably would need physical therapy over to physical therapists, then I think we would have a better healthcare system, in a sense that doctors are going to treat the people that really need, the MD medical treatment, as compared to someone who just needs to exercise.
Yeah. Well, and then also, so some of those hospitals or medical facilities that have a high output, they're very big organizations. From what I've heard, when people are redirected to physical therapy, they are people that are not very PTAs or something. Like they don't like, they give you, here's a sheet, here's like pictures of the very, this is a twofold question, but why is it? Because they pay poorly or something? Like, why are you not getting the cream of the crop? In terms of when I go to Kaiser, they're like, here's your PT.
Are we gonna get into this?
I need some juice. I need to know this is your field. So
let's talk about insurance, right? There are different types of insurance, and you have your HMO, PPO, Kaiser, whatever. And a lot of clinics, orthopedic clinics, who accepts insurance in a PPO or HMO fashion, many of them are limited in terms of how many units they can charge, they can bill, and insurance will only pay for so much. And every year, and this is not just an opinion, I came from an insurance-based clinic. I worked at 3 different clinics that are insurance-based, and it's very much a game of how much will insurance pay and how much volume can we do to make sense of this, because it's still a business, right? You still have to make money, and if insurance is not paying for services, then that means that you need to do more. You need to see more people, or you can delegate those tasks to people who are maybe less educated or less
Right.
quality work. I don't know. Like I feel horrible saying
I've
that.
just in all, and this is n equals however many, like maybe like 40 people throughout my life, and universally, I have never seen somebody go at Kaiser and they'd be like, "Oh my god, I feel night and day." And then I go to these private practices that have great reviews on Yelp, highly recommended by people. Somebody's like, "I had shoulder pain, like I couldn't even move my arm," and now they're like, "I'm so much better." And it's just the disparity.
Yeah,
it's just crazy.
Yeah, and
So,
just to give you a little bit more context too, when my other jobs that are insurance based, I was basically seeing patients every 30 minutes. I was working at one place, I was seeing patients every 20 minutes.
Were you even able
So
to
it's like
for those, for reference, we probably did a 2-hour assessment. Now, obviously, we had cameras on, and that was half the battle, and we had people coming in and out of the lobby. But it was definitely like it was very thorough.
Yeah.
So to give yourself 30 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, if evaluations are usually 45 minutes to an hour. So in that sense, that was fine.
25 to 50% though, right there.
Right. Like, it's very limited. And so now in my own practice, because I don't take insurance at all, I'm able to provide time for quality assessment. So I see for an evaluation, I typically see someone for an hour to an hour and a half. Yours was a little bit longer just because there were so many moving parts.
I have a list. I'm not joking. I have a list.
No. But and then treatments are also going to be like an hour because you deserve to have that quality approach, right? And it's one-on-one with a physical therapist. I'm not I'm not handing you a paper and then not looking at the quality of the movement or the exercise that you're doing. And I think it's not anything against those clinics that accept insurance, but I think you get to a point where you're going to have to lose something somewhere.
Right. You can't have everything working together. Like something has to give in order for that business model to go.
And that's also one of the reasons why I started my own practice, is because I was getting burnt out working 10-hour days, seeing like 20 people. You know, and then taking paperwork home and doing them at home. And it's like, it's just so much. And you don't feel like you're giving your best to your person, to your patient, because you're burnt out from 18 other people that you saw today.
Well, part of me too, also why I think our assessment was so long was because I never shut up and I asked so many questions. So I think half of it was just answering stuff where it's true. Like you don't get enough time. And for me, I would say, you know, your average person walking in, like your aunt who has a hip issue comes in, they don't know what they're looking for. They go on WebMD and they're like, you have 2 days to live. And that's it. And so they're just going in blindly. Whereas me, it's like, I'm trying to figure out, I was like, hey, this hurts here. All right, here's the muscle group that overlaps that. What are we doing? Is it tight? Like I'm trying to self-diagnose and still, you know, there was only so much, and you showed me so many new things, but I can only imagine the questions and stuff that comes up for somebody who's uninformed or doesn't already have somewhat of a background in kinematics or anything like that in terms of body movement. So I can understand those. I was also going to ask, it was a question that popped up from one of our followers and stuff. So why you get your homework from the PT and you go home, and how many people do you think are actually doing their homework? Like I was, that's probably, I think why I didn't go back to the first place was because it's like, I just felt so guilty about not having addressed, but I was getting better. Well, cause their question was, they worked on me for 30 minutes an hour. Shouldn't I be better? And so what I thought was, okay, you helped me get new ranges of motion I couldn't normally get. Now we need to work on solidifying and developing those new ranges of motion. Now, that's what I thought in my head when I tried to answer the question. What is...
I mean, I agree with you 100%. Like, I think that kind of mindset comes from your own experience of working with physical therapists. And I think for other people who believe that they should be better after seeing a physical therapist, like why do I need to have to do these like different movements on my own? I think it comes from a mindset or belief that a physical therapist is there to fix you or to fix your problem. But maybe it's our fault as physical therapists for not educating people enough to understand that I'm not here to fix your problems for you.
Yeah.
Like I'm here to guide you, you know, to troubleshoot with you, to you can think about it as like a GPS, like you're going somewhere you haven't gone before. Like this is totally new, right? You have a map. If we're going to go back in the days, it's probably like Thomas Guide, or now we have Google Maps, right?
Yeah.
So you're still the driver. You're still driving your car. And I'm just Google Maps telling you where to go, telling you different directions that might lead you to wherever that path is. Yeah. But so if you don't want to do the work yourself, how's the car going to get there? Like if you're not going to drive your own car, how are you going to get to where you want to be? Right. So if you don't want to do homework, sure, hire me as your chauffeur or Uber, you know, see me 3 times a week, see me 4 times a week. I'll do the work with you. But if majority of my clients I see maybe once every week or once every 2 weeks, and so that's a lot of days that I'm not seeing them. And so they have to do the work for it to stick. Right.
Well, I think that's why like somebody like me who's very hypochondriac based, where it's like, is doing it at this time the right time? How many times do I need to do it? You need to tell me exactly why, because I want to make sure I don't mess this up. And that's the thing, was before I didn't have that understanding when I had first gone to physical therapy, because it's like, I thought you freed me up and I feel freed up, but then that lasted maybe however many hours. And now here I am again, where it's like, I woke up the next day doing these things and it was really annoying. Right. And then I remember, you know, we're jumping right into this, but I remember one of the things was, well, you have 24 hours in a day, 8 of it you spend sleeping. Some of my postural stuff was what they considered to be suboptimal sleeping conditions. So you know where it's going, but Anne's about to rub some dirt in a couple people's eyes, but it was, you know, I used to think 8 hours a day, that's crazy. You have gravity acting down on you and stuff. I'm a heavier individual and stuff. Like I could see that after the course of whatever, placing a lot of stress on my joints from sleeping in the wrong position, because I used to sleep like this in my arm and I had problems with external rotation, the other stuff and the hips. And it was like, oh, that made sense. But, you know, you kind of opened my eyes in the sense that I didn't think about this before, is when you go to bed at night, how often do you wake up in that same position in the morning? And I told Anne, I was like, maybe only 5 times in my life. And that was severe jet lag from coming back from trips, like where it was like, I think I could have slept standing up like this and it would have been the same thing.
Right.
I just answered your question. But do you think sleeping is like, do you think it's just overrated in some ways? Like where people place too much stress?
I think sleep is very important. Yeah. Like, I don't think that was the question, but in general, like you want to have good quality sleep. Yeah. You know, the different cycles of sleep, you want to get into that deep cycle, REM cycle, all that stuff. Right. We're talking more about positioning when you're asleep,
so
right?
Not the merits of sleeping and stuff. There is plenty of studies. Please, and this is my plea to you all, is they had that random fact where maybe 4% of the world is the sleepless elite, where they can function on less than 6. And I feel like 50% or more of you think you're part of that sleepless elite. Just as if we all thought, I'm going to be one of the survivors in a zombie apocalypse. It's like, most likely you will be part of the horde. So, you know, say goodbye to your loved ones, all that stuff. But so with sleeping positions, like when you sleep on a certain thing and you wake up and you're like, oh, my neck hurts and the other things. But you were telling me.
This is just my approach. I know that a lot of people talk about sleeping positions and putting pillows in different positions so that you can position yourself well while you're sleeping. But in my own experience, I'm a really bad sleeper. Like I toss and turn. Even if I place certain pillows in different positions, I'm not gonna wake up with all those pillows still in my bed. They're all gonna be on the floor or whatever. So I question that. I question that advice because I think for a lot of people it's not gonna work because you don't know what you're doing when you're sleeping.
Yeah,
you can't really consciously control how your body or how your shoulders is positioned while you're sleeping.
Right.
So I think it's more important to really get a handle of what you're doing while you're awake because again, it's how many more hours that you're awake compared to your sleep, right?
Right.
It's much more. It's 2/3 compared to 1/3.
Right.
Is that the ratio?
Yeah, 2/3.
So it's 2/3 awake.
We passed high school math. I know that much. But yeah, 2/3 was awake, and then 1/3 is asleep. And,
so I think it's bigger. It's a bigger importance to take a look at what you're doing when you're not sleeping. When you're going by with your day.
Wait. Okay. Well, and it's true because then I thought about how many pillows I have in my bed, and it's my girlfriend and she has one. That's her favorite pillow. And I have a mountain of pillows. It's like a kingdom of pillows. It looks like the kids that had Legos or something. They built their own little room or something. Like, that's me. But I'll wake up in the morning, like 3 are on the ground.
Yeah.
I was just like, I always wondered if I was like sleepwalking or something. That I realized because the PT was like, you need cherry tart extracts juice. He was really big on that for solid quality sleep and the other stuff. Just as there's hyper responders in every different supplement, right? With magnesium, some people find their remedy. But for me, it was, I realized I just toss and turn different things. Even then I was like, I still wake up in the different directions. But I think I was so bought into it of like, that makes sense. 8 hours a night, gravity.
And I don't think there's any problem with like positioning yourself to be comfortable with pillows because then you can sleep. You can be comfortable. If you can sleep, then amazing.
Because when they showed me how to do it, where I was literally being embalmed like a mummy and stuff, like pillow here, boom, boom, 2 under the knees because you're a big guy, 1 over the lip of your back or what was it, just above the butt crack. And then if you're on your side, you have to put 1 here. And I was just like, man, this is a science. And then I just remember the first night just being like, spend an hour. I don't think this is sleep.
Yeah.
And but it was one thing where I was so bought into what they were saying. Okay, that can make sense. And I was looking ways to bridge connections for how am I going to fix myself.
Yeah. And honestly, I used to be guilty of that as well because I learned that. With physical therapy school, and then you take all these other con ed courses and they teach that. And so it's like, I tried using them. And the reason why I kind of questioned it, because I tried using them and I tried telling my patients how to do them exactly like you described. And they're like, you're going to expect me to do that? Like every night? No way. And so I was like, why am I expecting a patient to do that? I won't ever do that, myself.
Wake up, people. It's all a dream. It's not real. Life isn't real.
So I think it's also like good to question things. Like for you, for example, you've seen many physical therapists, like question them. Why are they giving you all these exercises? And if they can't tell you why, then maybe it's not that important.
Well, and I've seen stuff like that where these implementations of certain PT methods become all the rage. Like a trainer had success with it and they preach it like they're reinventing the wheel. And I hate it. It's strongly disliked, but seeing how many trainers I've seen in my life where like you need to be doing this cupping and stuff without different realizations, without seeing the movement screens they put through, without seeing the assessments, without knowing the injury history, like all these things. And I really hate it. It's funny. It's annoying, but it's also very helpful at the same time, because on one hand, it's good that we're all different, because the gift of injury is learning yourself and how you work and being smart and not being an idiot. But the second thing is, it's so frustrating when you're trying to find help because you can't paint everything with a black and white like stroke. And so getting help is hard. Having that realization and finding success in what you are doing though is amazing. Feels like cloud nine. But when we talk about implementing different things, what is your take? When throughout my life, I've seen so many trainers, seen so many people that are not qualified to, and they go, I'm gonna do PNF on you. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna do all this stuff. Correct me if I'm wrong. I swear I read this somewhere and I forgot where it was. Trainers, one, aren't even supposed to, and I know this might vary state to state, but you're not allowed to actually put your hands on people for certification. That's why I got my massage therapy thing, because I heard about that, but also I wanted to do manual therapy. And then I kind of realized people feel good for a little while, but they're not going to do the homework, the other stuff. And then I realized, I wasted a lot of money on massage therapy. There was more, because I thought, that's the next best thing. Yeah. I don't have the money for a PT program, but I could do this. Anyways, talking about past dreams and stuff. In another life, I did that, I'm sure. But what's your take when you see people that aren't qualified and they are doing stuff that, they saw their favorite influencer, they saw their favorite PT that they were doing to the body that was demoing? I'll say it for you. I'm infuriated, because I'm just like, hey, one, how many hours have you worked with the body? Have you learned to palpate landmarks, seen different things, and learning? Truly no, but our best assessment as a personal trainer PT, not physical therapist PT, is just seeing, does that hurt? Okay, let's change up the stance. Let's do this. Let's do that. Like, within our scope, tools in our toolkit. Yeah. Man, I dance around it quite a bit. But how do you feel about people implementing those things when they aren't, qualified to do so?
Are we just talking about manual therapy?
I mean, there's a lot.
There's
people
a lot.
Really do.
Yeah, no, I think in general, to be ethical, to have the integrity, if you're not trained in a specific approach, then I don't think it's a good idea to start implementing it on people just to try it out, just because he saw it online. Yeah. With that said, though, I know that there are many personal trainers that are qualified to do different approaches to people, and I don't have any problem with that. When it comes to manual therapy, I think you mentioned it earlier. In the state of California, it is illegal for a personal trainer to put their hands on people unless it's for like an assessment, I think, or palpation. But again, if you're licensed, if you're trained to do something, I don't have any problem with personal trainers, coaches doing manual therapy on people. I don't own a lot of these practices. I don't own a lot of these approaches. Yeah. Like I've seen so many athletic trainers, personal trainers, coaches who are so much better than a lot of the PTs.
So maybe you've just been in the right settings and stuff, because based on what I've seen at 24-Hour Fitness, different gyms and other things, or even when I eavesdrop and overhear people like, why are we doing this? It's going to fix you right up.
Yeah.
Like, you should have at least something that you can break right. And even on the simplest terms, being able to break it down for people and just be like, hey, this is why we're doing it. Yeah. Whether or not, you find it, I don't know. But I just think it's one of those things where if you don't really have a full grasp of how to implement it, like, either keep working on it, go talk to the people, the experts that do implement it really well and learn from them. But to just go blindly, I see a lot of people that will be like, they'll take it right off the internet and be like, we're trying this today. Yeah. And then they're like, you know what, I'm going to do this because it looks cool. It's like, I don't know if that warrants you having to put that in to somebody's program if they don't need it. Like, is everything going well? Are they progressing? Why are we, if it ain't broke, don't fix it type thing, I guess. Right. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it comes down to like what their reasons are, what their purpose are for implementing something. Because if the purpose is so that you can create clout, right, or so you can make more money, I don't know that that's
right
with integrity.
Yeah. And I think the industry gets diluted because you have so many of these like spur of the moment certifications where you can get it done, you're officially certified to do X, Y, and Z. And I think there's a big discussion we'll have with some of the dietitians we have on in the future of like, everyone can call themselves a nutritionist. Not everyone can call themselves a dietitian. So it's really annoying when people, kind of diagnose or prescribe different things when they're not even under the jurisdiction to do that. Like, you shouldn't be telling other people. That's irresponsible. So I guess from how many people I've had issues, the physical touch, but I also know humans are pretty robust and resilient. It's probably not going to fuck somebody up really bad, but you never know. And there's some crazy stuff you see at the gyms. And I always go, I can never comment on anybody at their one snapshot in time of their program.
Right, because you don't know the context, right?
You don't know anything. Like how many people I see in the gym just as trainers and stuff. And it's like, I used to criticize, and the other thing I was like, oh, half the time it's because that client saw it and they want to do it. And if that makes them more adherent to the program, great. Now when I walk into the gym, I was like, cool. So long as this person's not going to break their shins doing box jumps or something, like some crazy thing where you're like, all right, that's I think we can unanimously agree that's dangerous. I went on a little tangent there. It's more so, I guess, I've seen more in my settings, but it's nice to know you've seen very responsible people in your settings.
Yeah.
But okay, so with that, so outside of people working on that and everything, maybe if it's not, so long as they're not doing any harm and people feel better, that's great. So I know that I sent this to you, but 3 movements you consider worth your time. Whether it's anything regressive, an exercise, a stretch, breathing, like from a PT, would be short form, but PT recommends these 3 daily things. If you could have any 3 things you'd recommend, I know it's a stretch, but
I actually had this conversation with my boyfriend this morning because, and I don't remember what the context of that conversation was, but I think he was just asking like, what's the best exercise for his hip or something. I forgot what it was.
Oh man.
Yeah.
So was that like a 20-minute lecture you gave to him?
No, not really. Because I was like, I can't think of one best exercise. It's like, it depends. Yeah. And it's like, if I have my favorite exercises. Like I really like kettlebell swings, for example. And I think it was that because I gave him that as a in his program, kettlebell swings, and he's like, kettlebell swings is pretty good, right? Like it challenges your whole body, and pretty much you could do that, and that's all you need. And I'm like, well, it's really good, but I don't know that that's all you need.
Well, like I said, people want black and white, right? They just want to be told, and so it's like PT, the number one best exercise, that you're not doing. That's how it gets stalled up.
Yeah, I think that's more. So if you see that on Instagram or any social media, I think that's actually a flag. Yeah. Because
it's advertising.
It's hyperbole. You're basically just trying to, it's clickbaity.
Yeah.
You're just trying to get people to click on your video, which is not a problem if you need, followers or whatever. But at the same time, it's like, is it the truth? Probably not.
Well, I posted a study that was in like November, and it was in the video. I was like, the next 5 weeks are about to be the most challenging weeks of your life. And I put a little fire, and there's this little kid going, oh, and it was funny because right after that, I was like, yeah, it's clickbait, but it's not. But here's what we did find, and we find 90% of the weight gain that somebody gains and stuff within the year is within the months of the end of November or midway through November to the beginning of January. So, everybody's different, but what I can tell you and make some sort of sense of it was holiday eating, going out, more social things. It's colder. You're indoors with people more. Chances are you're sharing more meals. So it was like, okay. But the part was just, to scare somebody, that fear mongering.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're going to die. And then, not really. But I think that's why it's hard, because social media has gotten us to that point where we're overhyping things that shouldn't be overhyped.
Yeah.
Like even the breathing stuff too, of like, dude, this will change your life. And like, I love, there's a thing from Derek from More Plates, More Dates, where it was, I don't know why I went black on that. For More Plates, More Dates, but it was, some people respond really well to different stimuli and some people don't. Right? Like that one person who swears every night before they go to bed, melatonin, magnesium, that's the concoction to fall asleep. And then somebody's like, I tried it and
didn't work for me.
For an hour.
Yeah.
Did the opposite. So,
or even with caffeine.
Yeah.
Like my mom could drink as many coffee as she wants at night or in the afternoon and still falls asleep like it's no problem.
Yeah.
And if I drink coffee after 4 p.m., I won't be able to fall asleep. Yeah. So it depends on the person. I forgot what your question was. I think your question was 3 activities.
Well, yeah, 3 things. So
Okay.
here we go. This is where the short starts. 3 things from a physical therapist that is recommended you do every day. And then we'll break it with clickbait. Oh no, you died now. Now we're.
What do you think is happening?
I don't know. They got sick of us.
Should we check it out? Or?
I want to say it's good.
Okay. We just keep going.
Oh yeah, it's still loading up top. It's going to the cloud. But yeah, 3 things you can do. Maybe it's since the thumbnail. Like, all right, this is bullshit. Time to cut it.
Well, I'm just going to talk to you about my 3 favorite things that I do every day. Right? Every day?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I like to have a routine in the morning.
Okay.
So that means making my coffee, and to me that's meditative.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a part of my daily is meditation with coffee.
Mm-hmm.
I like cold showers just to amp me up. Again, like I said, I'm a pretty mellow person, so I need a little bit amping up.
Okay, Huberman. Sounds good.
And then any movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. Go to the gym, go for a walk, go for a hike, do a yoga flow, whatever movement that floats your boat, do it.
Okay. So whatever gets you to be active.
Yeah.
Whether it could be as simple as a walk, or you go to the gym and you just go crazy on the bike for 20 minutes. You're like, cool.
Whatever you want to do, as long as you're moving.
It's not as clickbaity as everybody thought. We can add some crazy effects or something and be like, oh, I climb the height of Mount Everest every morning, or some stuff like that. But okay, perfect. Misconceptions people have about PTs, other than the fact that a PT is physical therapist, and yes, there are personal trainers, but just say trainer. That's just my opinion. But every time I didn't realize how many people misunderstand that.
So PT is personal trainer, and DPT is doctor of physical therapy. I think that's how people kind of use them now.
I've seen so many people that were like, PTs just say I'm a PT. I was like, just say DPT, right? I thought maybe it was just the way they introduced themselves.
I mean, in school, but granted, I went to school in the Philippines, so this might not be relevant for here, but we call each other PTs all the time because physical therapists, PTs. And I wasn't even aware that personal trainers also call themselves PTs until, later on in life. So I don't know.
I just always said trainer, and, I guess it just depends where you're at. Some people go, I'm a strength and conditioning specialist.
Right.
Right. Whereas if you just got your, what was it, NSCA, like the basic training thing, they're like, oh, I'm a personal trainer. So I guess it really depends. But what are misconceptions about PTs?
About physical therapy?
Yeah.
I don't know. So there are many. So I think one of the biggest ones is that I talked about this earlier as well. Physical therapists are here to fix your problems, to fix your injury, that if you go to physical therapy, you're going to come out pain-free. I think that's a misconception.
Yeah.
Another misconception is that physical therapy will be painful. I don't think physical therapy is painful all the time. It can be painful, but I don't think it's...
When they were working on my psoas, it was...
Yeah, so it depends.
No,
right?
It's really good. I don't want to... trying to help you with the business, too. I shouldn't be selling it like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then that physical therapy is only for old people. I think that's one of the biggest ones.
Right. Do you feel like it's younger generations? Like I noticed with American stuff and the blood work that they're doing, the last lady I talked to is she said we're noticing more and more younger adults coming in. Whereas before, a lot of people thought once you hit 40 or something, that's when you get blood work. Yeah. And I was always curious because nowadays, a lot of things are happening at an accelerated rate, right? Like we were talking with somebody, they were saying girls are hitting puberty at younger ages nowadays. Guys are losing testosterone a lot sooner than they should be. and the rates are starting to decline pretty quick.
Interesting.
Now, I know this is probably dependent on the country, environmental factors, other stuff, but it was very interesting to see stuff like that. So I don't know if people are coming out of necessity because they're breaking down quicker, or if it's just there's a nice movement with social media where people do preach yoga flows, handle your stuff when you are hurt. Like, I don't know.
I think people are just more informed in general. They want to take care of themselves because they understand that it helps you live longer actively. More people want to be active. And I think with the age of technology and social media, you're just seeing more. You just know more things because now you can search it,
Right. Well, with that being said, do you think, and I'm going to ask this every single podcast, any person I ever talk to, even if it's going down the street, do you think the state of the country and stuff in terms of our health is better or worse? And I preface this with the last few ones with Jessica, with the people we had yesterday, which we're going to reshoot. We have more access than ever to informational outlets in terms of social media, PTs, like how to self-diagnose, issues on medical conditions, stuff like that. Like before it was go to a doctor, trust somebody, go to a library, learn. Now it's media, the internet's full of it. We have so much, but yet, we have young generation people pushing using pharmaceuticals, other things like that. Like if you want it bad enough, you'll do whatever it takes. You have people saying, go for broke, I don't care. They'll injure themselves, even if it means they get a new PR or say they, hurt trying. Like, I guess in my eyes is we have so much, such a bright horizon, so much opportunity to do this. But the way it's coming out, the way people are getting to fame, they're making outrageous claims. They're doing really dumb things. They're pushing the boundary. And I think it's leading to other people wanting to emulate the behavior. Do you think it's the same? Are you more optimistic? Are you a little more pessimistic about kind of the state of things? Do you think there's a bright future?
I'm in the middle.
Yeah. Damn it, Aaron. The most plain vanilla. I'm right there with you on everything, but I'm trying to make it a spicy podcast. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So if you think about it in this way, we have more information, so that's great, right? We know we can search things. We have so many different resources that we can tap into, but also it means that it's oversaturated of a lot of false things that maybe don't work or maybe are a detriment to whatever it is that you're trying to improve. And then you also have people who are doing too much, people who are not doing enough. We're also, on average, I believe, I don't know the actual numbers, but people are getting older and living much longer.
Well, yeah, we talk about life is being prolonged, but quality of life.
Exactly.
You could live to 100.
I was going to mention that too. It's the real question is like, how's your quality of life?
Right.
And though I don't think I'm the right person to answer that, just because I don't have the actual numbers. In general, I am more optimistic though, because I think that even though we are, bombarded with a bunch of things, I think more people are interested in taking care of their health more than not, which is, I think, is a good thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that in the sense that for as bad of a term, and you'll see everybody completely disown the label, but like biohacking, I think people love the idea of knowing that they think they have control and knowing that they are doing these changes that are like, I'm turning into Edward from Twilight. I'm going to live forever. It was like, who knows what the case is? It's just interesting because it's like that same kind of, raw, like, let's do this, let's improve our life and stuff is also the same thing, though, that you go down this rabbit hole of telling and pushing to people, you need to be doing this type of thing. I've seen people where they literally have a dialysis machine where they're recycling their blood. Ben Greenfield, I'm sure people know him. But, you know, all these different things, it's like, one, it's impractical, it's expensive, all these things. But two, we don't even know if these are working, right? But
We don't have enough
when
data.
people, they look a certain way and people want to look that way, right? They'll just see, well, the anti-aging thing must be working for him. Look how good he looks at 40. It's like, well, maybe genetics favored him. Maybe the treatment is working. My Dr. Andy Galpin, I'm going to botch this horribly, but he used to say, a lot of what science is almost like we're in a room blindfolded with a dart in our hand and we're throwing it at the board. And we don't even know if we're aimed at the right wall.
Yeah.
But we're going to hear something when it does hit the right area and know, hey, we've proven something to be wrong.
Yeah.
So now we're one step closer to maybe getting stuff right.
Yeah.
And maybe that's horribly off. But the way I look at it is it's a nice intent, but it can get a little extreme and people want to emulate extreme and you know, then when you get to the biohacking, when people say that, it's like, I don't know if I'd wear that with, you know, proudly wear like the hat of biohacker and stuff, because that's just throwing out everything we've ever learned about medical, you know, and just being like, oh, there's a new way of doing things and stuff. It's like, you know, the progression of medicine, the progression of human, you know, with people and their improvements in their self, their quality of life. There's so many things to look at, and people could make such huge leaps in their health and wellness if they just get the basics. Like I think
keep it simple.
Yeah, sleep, hydration, eating right, moving every day. If you do that, you're better than, you know, 90% of the people that are ailed by something, I would say. And unfortunately, like genetics is something we have somebody I hope we can talk about with epigenetics and genetics.
Cool.
But that's another cool conversation that we'll have for one day. But
yeah,
as far as that, like I'm optimistic for things. I just don't know, because we are plagued with a lot of people and a lot of labels that you would almost want to be like, I don't want any part of that. Or, you know, you're going to see somebody who's like, keto is the way.
Yeah.
And then they die. Or I've seen there was that news article a couple years back with somebody doing the fasting, and they refused because they thought the fasting would activate autophagy, which would fight the cancer. And they died even a worse death than, you know, they could have if they had accepted or seeked out treatment. And it's hard because was that from somebody they watched online that was eloquent and well-spoken in a way that just made them so convinced of it that they knew they had the key to, you know, fighting this in their pocket should they need it. So for me, I'm always curious, and I know it's all walks of health. There's so many different aspects and avenues in health, but
yeah, I think in general, keeping it simple, going back to the basics, not being distracted by the shiny object syndrome.
Yeah,
I think that's what you call it, right?
Yeah. Live forever.
And do you really want to live forever?
Yeah.
It's
that goes into philosophy.
Yeah, are we gonna get into philosophy?
I don't know if
it's gonna be a 6-hour podcast.
We're only in the second one, and we don't want to break people's heads right now and doing that. Oh no, my flashlight. But yeah, I think it's just something very interesting in seeing kind of where it's at, and that's why I want to ask everybody, because you are an expert in your field. The last person was an expert in theirs. You are working with people that are coming back from injury and maybe some really devastating. And the other person was working with people who are on their deathbed. Like putting all that together, that's a lot of wisdom to kind of, you know, see and shape your lens and how you look through it and the POV you have on life. So I think that was great.
Okay.
Now that everybody's engaged and stimulated and questioning their existence or wondering if they should go to the doctors tomorrow to make sure they get their scans done, we'll move on to the next thing. But same principles or different principles in terms of the population. So remember, geriatric, all the things. I remember in the earlier part of the podcast, we said same principles apply. That's pretty much true for most with anything with the PT. Nothing like that would deviate too much from.
Yeah, going back to that, keeping it simple, I think if you just follow the same principles, maybe you're not having a 90-year-old do plyometrics, but then you're having them do single leg balancing or marching in place.
Right.
You know,
so everything is the same. It's just the regressions, the progressions that you see. Okay. Let's see. So we'll get into a couple of the questions.
Okay.
So myofascial release, is it all that it's chalked up to be? I didn't read it exactly what it was, but yeah, what's your take on myofascial release?
Okay.
Because that was a very big thing that went through the internet.
So I'm not going to talk about myofascial release specifically. I'm just going to talk about manual therapy as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
And for context, I think I mentioned it earlier. I was traditionally trained as a manual therapist. I have my certification in manual therapy, certified manual therapist. And for the first 6 years of my work, I've used manual therapy exclusively. I mean, with some exercises, but for that 30 minutes that I'm treating a patient, I was doing manual therapy maybe for 20 minutes and then giving them exercises in a sheet afterwards.
The sheet.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I think we have to really define what manual therapy is. For your question, myofascial release is what it is versus what it's not.
Right.
I think a lot of people believe, and I was guilty of this myself, and I know that many physical therapists still tell people this, and other clinicians as well, that manual therapy is doing something to the tissue that changes its structure. That's incorrect.
Right.
That's not true at all. Research has found that manual therapy doesn't actually change tissues. We maybe
you need like tons of force, right? To actually, because what they found in the mice and stuff was you literally need a bulldozer to go over.
There's actually some pretty funny memes out there about manual therapy and like how, you know, if you take out like a piece of steak and then look at their tendons and you try to break it, like you can't. Or whatever, their fascia. And you try
like
to break it, you won't.
Right,
you know?
the fascia, like the chicken, when you get a rotisserie chicken and you see the little pieces and stuff like that. And it's like those things are tough.
Those things are really, really tough. And so if you believe that, then I am sorry to tell you that's not what happens. What actually happens is that you're just creating a different input into the system. And so that might change the way that system responds to whatever it is that you're doing to it. So the way that I use manual therapy now is that if someone is having issues with their shoulder, for example, maybe they're having pain, they can't lift their arm up overhead, and I'll do some manual therapy just to kind of change the input into their system. And maybe they are able to free that up a little bit. Did that change the tissue? No, but I was able to free up the quality of movement. Then I will use that manual therapy because it created the outcome that I wanted.
So that's like what I've seen with foam rolling, where people think they swear by it and everything, and although it doesn't produce like any reformation or anything, it in some ways acutely desensitizes kind of the muscle because ow, yeah, you're rolling it along your TFL. It's not going to feel great, but now you've kind of desensitized yourself to whatever exercise you do better. And then they find like an acute improvement in range of motion that doesn't last forever, but hey, if you feel good, if you feel good in your workout, utilize it. Right? So that's the same principle behind that.
So if cupping or myofascial decompression, as physical therapists call cupping, works to get that person do an overhead lift, I'm going to use that.
Do you think it's convenient as well? Because now people are selling cupping sets, all these companies.
No, I think it's great as homework.
Okay.
Again, it's like if they feel like instead of going to the physical therapist for that day, if they feel tight that day and if they know that cupping works, then just buy your own cupping tool and then do it on yourself and then, you know, see if it helps. If it doesn't, then sell it.
On to the next one. Yeah.
But in general, I think a lot of people give merit to manual therapy as in this is like the only thing that works. I don't think it's that. And I would definitely was guilty of it. And I still struggle with it right now because it's hard to change your habits, right? I used manual therapy for so long. And anecdotally, I know that it works for people because I was able to get rid of their pain with manual therapy alone.
Right.
But at the same time, it's like, no, these people, you mentioned earlier that it's acute changes. It's short term. It's very transient. So you want to make sure that you're doing something else to make that change stick. So that's when you have them do exercises. It's when you prescribe all these different things that you can use to make those improvements more long term.
Okay. So then with myofascial, you'd say depends, right? On
if it works or not.
Like for you though, like in implementation. So the question was, is it all it's chalked up to be? I feel like it's a little exaggerated, but for the sake of advertising and marketing.
Yeah.
But it does have its place.
People like it. Yeah. So in general, clients love manual therapy. Clients love myofascial release. So for marketing purposes, it's amazing because then you get people in the door. I know a lot of practitioners who are very successful with their patients' clients who don't use manual therapy.
Right.
Yeah.
So you can make it work with it or without it. It would still, okay.
It just depends what you want to do.
And then
I personally use manual therapy maybe 20% of the time. For some of my patients, I have some clients who are like, I just want body work. Okay, fine. Yeah. I'll do that.
All right.
Yeah.
Really, really expensive massage type thing, you know?
Exactly.
But hey, if it makes you feel good.
Yeah.
How about trigger point?
Same.
Scraping?
Same. They're all manual therapy to me. That's why
we don't have a great segment. Yeah.
That's why I said manual therapy. And honestly, I think it depends on like what your patient's beliefs are. Like for example, I have a client that I can think of right now who, when she was younger, her mom used to do scraping on her. It used to hurt. And it wasn't anything scientific. Her mom just like did that because that's what her grandma used to do. And it's for like asthma or something. And for her, it was a horrible experience. So would I be using scraping for her? I won't. Because I don't want to,
bring back up like somebody who's a victim of abuse or something.
Exactly.
I know we learned that with the massage of like even working on somebody's neck or something like that. Like they can really bring up. Yeah. It can be, kind of a trigger for stuff.
Oh, I'm also going to bring up like even though I said manual therapy probably doesn't do what you think it does, I think there's a lot of merit to touch.
Oh, yeah.
It's like, there's a lot of scientific evidence that touch actually help improve someone's pain or, I think there is a lot of benefits to physical touch.
When we were learning like lymphatic massage and stuff and people in hospice, just very soft touches and the other things like that. Like, I remember like the very first thing I read in the massage therapy manual when we went to our school was the gift of touch. And every touch is with intent. People can feel other people's energy. Like when you feel you are tense and the other things, that really builds up. And people can sense like different things. If you work with somebody long enough, you'll get to know, hey, it's not just a person that does it hard. Maybe they were carrying a lot of stress and weight. And so it's really a big thing, whether or not people like to say you can prove it or not. There's only so many ways to test empirically for outcomes that you want. We don't know if there's other ways. So
exactly,
I agree with that. With the myofascial release and the other stuff, manual therapy, just all under the guise of that or under that umbrella. So would you say when they implement something like that, though, there should be some mindful or some type of intent with doing an exercise that would allow them to work on that free range of motion, right? Like just as if you were to be in physical therapy and you get out, they're going to tell you, go do this because we want to drill that new range of motion, solidify proper movement patterns or movement patterns that will be more beneficial for you in mitigating your signs. Because there's no one perfect way to move. There's no one perfect posture.
Yep.
Fight me on that, or at least fight the physical therapist, because that's where I learned from somebody. I'll move it up the totem pole to her. But okay, so just making sure, because I think a lot of people like just cupping and they'd just be like, I feel good. And then they're like, what more should I do? Because they keep falling into that same trap of, why does my shoulder keep hurting? It's like you can only, it's like only putting a Band-Aid on for so long. Yeah,
right? It's kind of like, and nothing against chiropractors, but kind of like going to the chiropractor, getting an adjustment. Yeah. You're there for 15 minutes, feel great. You get out of the treatment. Maybe you feel amazing today. After a couple hours, you're back to where you started.
That's probably part of what I saw in different gyms a lot of people doing the adjustments and the other stuff. And I was like, if you get to a point where you're not a chiropractor, but you're doing the traction with the towel for the neck, I'm like, no, I would never trust, not even, I don't know. It scares me because I've heard some horror stories with that.
Right.
I don't know if that's true or not though, but I just don't want to find out, okay. And then exercise and stretches for the geriatric population, the older adults. What would you recommend? This was one of my friends who asked it. I'm guessing it was for his grandma. And it was just something my grandma had passed last year. And it was one of those things where I remember near the end of her life, she was getting very into doing like the little group classes, even as simple as raising the arms over the head and stuff. But what would you, I know you have to scale it based on what you'd see from them, but what would be something you would recommend just in general?
Personally, I used to work with a lot of elderly. I really like using the kettlebell for them. Because I do believe that our geriatric population is very under exercised. Even in the physical therapy world, like you see them using bands when they can hold like a heavy kettlebell. Like it's crazy when I have like an 80-year-old do a goblet squat or a goblet sit to stand. It doesn't have to be a squat. And they are so amazed with how much they can lift that 30-pound kettlebell. And they're like, that's crazy. I can lift that much. And they think that they can only lift 5 or 10. And I think, and the reason why I like the kettlebell, I think it's a safe, quote unquote, safe starting point, because a lot of people, if you give them a barbell, 45 might be too heavy, or maybe they're afraid of it much more than they're afraid of a kettlebell, because a kettlebell just has a nice shape to it. You can hold it properly with on the horns, like it just,
you feel like you're bigger than it too,
right?
Like
Exactly.
It's a kettlebell, whereas like a barbell is 6 feet across, and you see lifters with hundreds of pounds.
Exactly. And why not a dumbbell? I don't know. I like kettlebells.
Well, it's just hard, like, because just that grip and having it in front of you and stuff. Like, I feel like I like, doing variations of like kettlebell squat / like hip hinges almost, because you have more freedom to do whatever your body is allowing you for the day. So like if you're like, hey, I'm a little tight here and I just can't get it, well, you can wedge yourself down in another way, and it's a little more forgiving, as opposed to if the barbell is not moving a certain way and stuff, trying to reposition all that. And
it's also, I think barbells, well, I don't know if this is a true statement, but in general, I think barbell might be more technical. Not sure if that's true, but I think using a kettlebell for an elderly, you can also play around with balance, with like weight shifting.
There's more versatility.
Exactly.
Where a barbell is, unless you turn it into a landmine, the other stuff, and the fact that a standard barbell is usually 45 pounds. Like right out the gate, where if you're working with a client, you have kettlebells from 5 all the way up to 50. You can get the right one, for the job,
Exactly. So, but okay, so to end that though, that's my favorite. But I think the best exercise for a geriatric is the one that they're gonna do. Because it still depends on that person in front of you.
I just picture like the SpongeBob memes or something where, did you ever watch SpongeBob?
Yeah, I did growing up.
Like Plankton, where he's like, move it, grandma. Like she like swings the purse and hits him. It's like, I think that's hilarious because, like just get up and move is essentially the message for everything. But what they can do that doesn't hurt them, that they're still able to feel like they're challenged by it and stuff like that.
And also what they enjoy. Because I think for especially the older adult population, like people in their 80s, 90s, a lot of them have lost their sense of joy in their lives because all their friends have died. Their partners, have passed away. Their kids don't really like them anymore. Their grandkids don't really visit them anymore. Like, if they can play somehow.
Oh yeah, I've seen stuff like in the pool or the older adult classes and stuff, or the music's playing. That's the one joyful thing I remember at 24 was going in and you'd see like the 6 o'clock at night class and everybody's in there with the little hydro weights and they had some music playing and
you see all these like old people like dancing.
It's just like even on Saturdays when I'd go play basketball, I'd see like 60-year-old men playing with this little like pickup games at 8 in the morning. I don't know why I was at the gym as a young kid at 8 in the morning on Saturday, but watching people play and stuff, like just the enthusiasm, like in sports, when you find something, a modality for exercise, whatever it is that you like, never let it go, because that's going to give you kind of the key to longer life, feeling
And
better,
happier
and
life.
sharing it with other people.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the beautiful part of sports or group classes. It's a community, it's camaraderie, everything. So, okay. So the bottom line, move, do that. We already covered the why people don't do their homework after PT sessions, and well, actually we already answered it. And then, so this one was near the end. PTs, different screenings for movements. Everybody I've been with, one just had me walk down the hallway. The other one had me try to raise my arm over my head and stuff like that. Do you think screening, like movement screenings and stuff, are similar in the PT community, or do you think it varies person to person? Like, I know going to the conferences, you find different things. And even to me, that was brand new, where I was trying to sit back on my legs with my butt touching the floor. It's called a what?
Tall sit.
Tall sit. I failed my tall sit. It was on the list. But yeah, so that was brand new to me. I've never even seen that. So do you think movement screenings are varied person to person, or are they all the same, or is it stuff you're looking for? What are you?
I honestly think it depends on the physical therapist and what they want to see. I know that we've tried to standardize it. Me personally, I have a list of things that I'm looking at, but then it depends on the person in front of me what of those different screens I'm going to use for them, because I only have an hour and a half. I can try to do all of them all in one day, but then I feel like that's overwhelming to the person. And so even though you have these fundamental movements, right? Like someone needs to be able to squat, hinge, push, pull, carry. What else did I miss? Whatever else that I missed, if you have all those fundamental movements that you're looking at, and you're looking at the quality of how they do those movements, and that can be your screen. But then you can go deeper. You can go into the specifics. If this person has or had an ankle issue, then you look more closely into the ankle biomechanics and how that foot moves, or different things up and down the chain. So it really depends on the physical therapist, what they like using, what they've seen in their own practice is the most beneficial. With the different continuing education courses that I've taken, they all have their own screens. And what I do is I just try to take what I think is the best out of all of them, and I try to kind of mix them all in my own, made my own screening process.
Well, I think that's cool, because then you have your own unique spin, but you kind of walk through the checks and balances of it all. So just making sure. Well, and that's why I'm always curious, is like, what tells you what? Because for me, I feel like it's still very 2D. Like when I watch stuff, it's like, okay, when they try to squat, they can't get into deep hip flexion, or the knees don't really travel past the toes. All right, let's start looking here. But when you start doing these things like the gait, like analyzing, does the foot collapse, the other things, and then does it fall in line with the signs and symptoms? Like, oh, they're experiencing pain on the inside of their knee. Well, we could assume that. And then I see Adam Meekins. I don't know if you've heard of him.
Yeah.
Or Amira, and I see those things, and I love it how combative they are with, like, when people tell me what's the best thing to do. Like, I was like, it doesn't fucking matter. I was like, it doesn't. I'm lazy. I don't want to do this. But then at the same time, too, like you said, you have to address something. Something's going on. So you'll have to figure it out. You can't just keep saying, like, even I'm still having a hard time accepting some of what Adam preaches.
Right. No, honestly, like, I love Adam Meekins. There's actually, I was going to mention this earlier when we were talking about myotherapy.
Maybe that's a person you
so Adam Meekins, he's if you don't know him, he's a physiotherapist from the UK. And he is a big critic of myotherapy. And there's actually a really, really good podcast, one of my favorites on this topic. It was a debate between Adam Meekins and Chad Cook, who's a physical therapist. I think he's in North Carolina, maybe. But he's a big proponent of myotherapy. So they did a debate on this podcast, and they talked about, is manual therapy kind of like what you asked me earlier? Does it work or does it not work? And they talked about that. So, I mean, we're going to go back to the manual therapy topic, but if you want to go do a deeper dive on Adam Meekins and his take on manual therapy versus Chad Cook and his take on manual therapy, I think that's a really good podcast to listen to if you're still interested in manual therapy. But I also did a deep dive into the Psin Science stuff, and I don't know if you've heard of Greg Lehman. He's a PT in Canada, but also a chiropractor at the same time. And he is also a big researcher on Psin Science. And I was interested in biomechanics, and I kind of wanted to just check out everything else that matters. But I was also very deep into Psin Science at that time. And I'm like, okay, manual therapy, Psin Science, these all work, but I feel like I'm still missing something. And so that's when I got into biomechanics a little bit. And then I asked Greg Lehman, I was like, what do you think of this? Whatever, because he's a biomechanist initially, like in his like earlier life. And he was like, well, don't waste your time. And then I was like, oh my goodness.
Hit you with it right away.
You just like shattered my like trying to inform myself there. And so that kind of gave me a little bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, because I was like, you can't just shut it down. You can't just tell me not to look into it when I feel like it matters. And so I did exactly the opposite of what he said. And I wasted my time, and I got into the rabbit hole of biomechanics and all that stuff. And what I found is that they can all work together, like biomechanics, Psin Science, manual therapy. If you can have them work together for the purpose of taking care of the person in front of you, I think that's all that matters. It doesn't matter if you're wrong or right. Most of the time you're not. Most of the time you're wrong.
The end goal is just the client's overall improvement and what they feel like alleviation from signs, symptoms, and solidifying things that they're the opposite of what they were doing. So
it's all the foundation.
It's just so interesting because you think you know so much, and then never in my life would I think it went from don't deadlift, it's bad for your back, to deadlift all this, and then it recycled into don't deadlift, it's bad. Then it was, well, don't deadlift if you have X, Y, and Z and some of these contra indications that are with you. And then, Adam Meekins goes, fucking deadlift.
Just do it.
Just do it. And then I was just like, dude, you gotta stop. But it's one of those things too where you can find almost any evidence to always support what you want with journals and the other stuff, resolving your pain by doing absolutely nothing, resolving your pain, or people having less pain overall that engage in doing deadlifting and the other stuff in their lower back. Like, you know what I mean? There's just so many
it's very things. Nuanced.
Yeah. And so I feel like it's frustrating, but it's also actually very, it feels good to know, like, oh, okay. Like you start to whittle things down, but you don't have such another thing, one-dimensional approach. You can look at things from different angles now. And I feel like that's kind of the goal of your journey as a practitioner in this field, whether it's trainer, physical therapist, chiropractor, whoever. And so I think that's cool, but also knowing when you should refer people beyond, it's beyond my scope of practice. I can refer to you and vice versa if it's ever something different. But I think that's interesting, and PT always has its roots in a lot of stuff, because the smallest things can make the biggest differences, especially when you identify what needs to be worked on. And so that's why you're here. I need help too. Like, nobody's perfect. A hard part of me is also feeling I've always had to grasp with myself of, am I a failure because I can't figure out how to fix my own self? How can I tell myself that I can help other people if I can't fix myself? One, I think we're too harsh on ourselves all the time. But two, it's okay to look for help, because you won't learn anything more and you won't know anything more until you learn something more from somebody else who spends all their time in this. So
I think if someone is saying no to help, that's ego, right?
Yeah. But it's hard because I can only imagine, like, people that, like, when they build a giant community or something, they go, this is why quotes and the other stuff. I think people have that, was it Oedipus complex or something? Like they feel like they are a god to their people. Like, I'm infallible. I can't be wrong. I have too many people that look up at me. And so it'd be all the more like that fall from, you know, but I overall, I think now it's like, no, but this is part of the journey, because you'll learn more things about yourself, and even the smallest things, like this, just pronation. I was practicing on the blackboard, just trying to use my foot pushing down a little bit more. And then when I jumped into it, I even filmed a video, I forgot to send it to you, but doing a body weight squat and going in front was like, not only did my descent feel more controlled and kind of even, I didn't feel like that knee pain that I had been experiencing from the other stuff. And it was like, okay, the small things, like obviously we're not perfect because it took you years and years to get here. Like you said, I steered the ship in the wrong way. And now I'm trying to correct course. I've been at sea for a couple of years. I don't like it. It's not fun. The sunsets are beautiful, but I want to go home. So just like figuring out little things like that, and then, you know, doing the homework and committing to the homework, right?
That's really cool.
That's good. And then, okay, so, and then why you became a PT was just because career changes, pretty much? Was there any, when you first saw it, were you interested?
Why.
Yeah.
There's a deeper why.
Okay.
When I first saw it, it was more like, okay, this is something for me to do. But then the more I got into it, it's more about helping people, because I love helping people. And that's the reason why I didn't want to be an engineer in the first place, because it's not directly helping. You're still helping people if you're an engineer. Like, I'm not saying you're not, but you're not directly working with people. And what I wanted is to get that fulfillment of directly, you know, helping someone and seeing someone be able to squat without knee pain.
Right.
Like, I really like that feeling. Myself, I have some issues when it comes to pain. I have like stuff in my neck that I need to figure out, or that I've been figuring out for so many years. And it's like that, knowing that I'm in an industry that helps people with their headaches and with their neck pain, and be able to work out without, you know, and knowing that the body is resilient, I think that's really exciting. And so that would be, if I were to choose a deeper why, I think it's making people know how resilient their bodies are, and making people confident and being able to move again without any restrictions.
And what was your quote again, too, that you'd like? Solid foundation.
Elevate your life.
Elevate your life.
Build a solid foundation.
Build a solid foundation. Yep. Because that will be the thumbnail for the YouTube video. Professional photo and a small description. But I think that's really cool for everybody. But that's good. Yeah. The why, it's so gratifying to see people make improvements and stuff, especially for other people. And as much as I used to belittle myself, part of me starts to believe now, you know, this is in essence preventative medicine to some extent, and helping people with that, because just my own findings with myself, I do not want to go the back half of my life being just reliant upon every medical intervention, all these things. I want to really enjoy a long life. So it starts by addressing it now, especially because I'm in still my earlier years. I'm about to have my thrisis, is what I've heard it's called, is 30s and stuff. So, yeah.
I feel like that's too early.
I know it's too early, but then you start going, oh, what am I doing with my life? I don't know. But everybody's got their own path.
And as long as you're taking ownership, I think that's the biggest thing there. It's because people like to try out different things, right? Okay, what could help me, you know, do this and that? And it's always something outside of themselves. But when you look inside yourself and really take ownership of what it is that you got to do, that's when you can make really big, crazy changes.
Right. Well, that's the thing. All about self-improvement and getting better one day at a time. So
Amen.
That's good. The last two, just the last thing is going to be, it's just going to be a hypothetical case study. We'll be grasping at straws.
Okay.
I didn't have this written up. This is just off the top of my head, because I know you said what you saw the most walking through the door was back pain and neck pain. I see a lot of people with shoulder issues here.
Okay.
Now, I know the shoulder is one of the most mobile joints of the body, right? Like, there's a lot of things that could go wrong. You got the different things, the sits, muscles, all that stuff, rotator cuffs, everything. So let's just say I have a friend that they experiencing like shoulder pain on the way up. Like they can't, when they do a military press and stuff, they just can't get past the first couple degrees and getting up. But once if you assisted them up and they were holding it overhead, they could go up and down, up and down. They're, just complaining of, just achiness, the other things in the shoulder. They're very, very developed. They have years of training under their belt and stuff, but just constantly feels like they're broken and everything. If knowing the limited information that you have, he's a male, early 30s, stuff like that. No family history of smoking or heart disease, all that, blah, blah, blah. I know
all the red flags have been checked.
Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's good. Very, very in shape, dude. But if you were in his shoes, what would you look at first? Where would you go with that? Now, obviously, we can make the assumption of, okay, just let's try to get pain-free, right? But like, what are you looking at? Because the shoulder is, to me, it's always seemed way more of a complex thing. Like things at the knee, you start to see maybe it's ankle, hip, for the most part. Obviously, I still couldn't solve my stuff. But where would you kind of go and what would you do? I know it's so vague.
It is very vague.
Yeah.
But what I would assess is I would take a look at that person's rib cage, how their scapula or the shoulder blade is moving in relation to the rib cage. Maybe if their rib cage mobility is limited, where it is limited one way or the other, and how is that affecting their shoulder movements. Sometimes I look at the neck for people with shoulder pain just because there are stuff that is radiating from the neck that is coming down to the shoulder. So it just depends on what those different screens are going to show me. So yeah, I would take a look at the rib cage first.
And the rib cage is more like an egg.
And a what?
Like an egg, like the shape of an egg, right?
Oh.
I've heard, or at least I saw a PT was just talking about rib cage, torso flare, all these things. And he was saying, like, when you think about the shoulders and upward rotation and the other things, like they don't just go up and down; they kind of come up and over. Just because you're not. I was like, oh, I never really.
They have to kind of follow the contour of the rib cage.
Yeah.
I've not heard of the egg analogy though, but that's kind of nice. I like that.
They showed like a diaphragm. And I was like, you know how some people are just super off with their anatomy models? Like I've seen the chest striations when they're supposed to be like a fan, they go down. And I was like, I mean, I know the pec minor and stuff, but like literally vertical up and down. Like, who drew this anatomy book? But yeah, so I was just gonna say it's things like that. So just looking at positioning of the rib cage, maybe something in the neck, any tight muscles or anything that you might see that might inhibit, like if people have very tight pecs and stuff from overtraining, it's pulling everything forward and now you're in an internally rotated position. So it might be good to try to, and that's leading to maybe some of the closure, right? Okay.
So like you mentioned tight pec minor, a lot of people who sits in front of the computer and do computer work all day for 8 hours, more than 8 hours a day, usually they would have like tight shoulder or tight chest. I'd look at different things in the rotator cuff as well.
And then how about, I deal with an awful lot of people with sciatica, we've seen nerve gliding has been a huge thing. What do you do when people have a little bit more aggressive bouts, like from day to day? Like, is there anything you would do specifically outside? Because I've heard nerve gliding, I've heard just train around it, right? Like do what you can do or anything.
Yeah.
Is there anything specifically?
Can you give me like a sample scenario? Like,
well, somebody, let's just say, like in the past, when I've had a client and stuff, radiating down their butt, kind of down to their leg, to their
all
foot.
The way down to the feet. Okay.
Yeah, and then they're like, ooh, they feel stiff, and you see them walk and stuff, and you can tell it's somebody very stiff. It's not, the arms aren't freely flowing. They're kind of like, almost like they have to use the restroom or something, just kind of walking like that. Like, I've heard different things about, when you're trying to distinguish between the piriformis and what is the sciatic nerve. Like, is one tight or is the other one just being pulled quite a bit? I've heard different things of
So
This is me talking out, like, this is not planned and stuff. We're just trying to get a couple like hypothetical case studies so that way.
Yeah. So the piriformis is a muscle that is deep in your buttock, in that butt area, and it goes on top of the sciatic nerve. Sciatic nerve itself is not a muscle; it's a nerve.
Right.
That comes out of your spine and distributes all the way down to your feet. And when that piriformis is tight, this is the idea of piriformis syndrome, is that it pinches onto that sciatic nerve, it causes like whatever radiating pain. But there's also other reasons why someone might have sciatica.
Yeah. Well, do people even...
Maybe it's not piriformis.
Do you not want to be doing manual therapy then too? Because in essence, you're still compressing the piriformis.
So it depends. Yeah. So for someone like that you described, they could barely walk. You see that they're rigid. They're having a hard time even like hinging or sitting down. I would actually do manual therapy for that person for the purposes of calming down that painful area. So if I can create just a little bit more input into the area where the sciatic nerve is, if I can just change whatever painful sensation, tingling, numbness, whatever it is that they're feeling, then that's better than... I would not be comfortable loading that person with weights if they could barely sit down.
Right.
I would try and see if I can change their pain first, and then we can talk about loading them afterwards. But I am more interested in lowering their pain more than making adaptations at that point.
Okay. And then that's where you get into, is it just so you'd be working at the local area, like pretty much? You talk about sciatica, the sciatic nerve running all the way down. And this is just more background for a lot of people too, just where, like, so when you see that, because sciatica seems to be something that's common. Like, I'm trying to think about like things that are very big, right? Like, I know a lot of people deal with some type of shoulder stuff, whether, they just do excessive amounts of pressing and the other things is overkill. They don't have time. Or the sciatica thing, I know a lot of older adults seem to be dealing with that. And, I see it in a couple of my clients, but we train around it. We do all that. But some days it's more debilitating. And
it depends. It depends how they're showing up at your door. And it's not the same every time.
Right. Yeah. Unfortunately, it's always going to be something different. But
right. And so I would treat it in a sense of, okay, what are your symptoms today? If it's like mild, I could kind of feel it, but it's not really going down all the way to my toes. But then like I could kind of feel it, but it's okay. Then sure, let's work out today.
Yeah.
Or let's have you do some exercises that will help improve that pain.
Would you tell them not to do certain exercises? Like you said, if they can't even sit, does that mean you want them doing a squat or a lunge, like something that would involve knee bend, hip flexion? You don't want that happening, or you just don't want?
I wouldn't load it. Like I wouldn't have them do heavy squat. I won't have them like go really heavy on squats if they could barely sit.
Right.
Because not because it's bad for them, not because it's going to destroy their body, but more so, what is that going to do to their pain? Because I can imagine someone loading someone up that's already kind of hyperreactive. Yeah. And if that causes even more pain, then what are they going to feel afterwards? So they're going to think that lifting is bad.
So they would almost be hyperfixated on, they're already feeling quite a bit of sensation. And so now, why would we want to amplify that in somewhere where that's similar to you're feeling a stretch or something down there where you're trying
right.
Okay.
That's just my approach.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm curious. And like, obviously, people need to see and everything too. But I try to do 2 little case studies because a lot of us cannot put ourselves in mind of you because we do not have the education or the background or the experience with other people. So I'd rather just have something where it's like, if you woke up tomorrow in somebody's shoes that's dealing with knee pain, or like back pain or whatever, like, and you know what you know, right?
Yeah.
What would that person's first course of action be? That way people can, see what they need to do and kind of like figure out, for themselves where they go from there. So I think it just gives us a little taste. But with that being said, if you want to know more, or you have issues similar to this or stuff that you're dealing with, how can we reach you? How can we find you? If the whole world already isn't pissed at you from some of the
right?
stances you took.
I'm sorry.
That sleep community. What's his face? What's his name? Why We Sleep.
Oh, I love that book. Matthew Walker.
Matthew Walker.
Yeah.
He's probably pissed at you
great
right
book.
now.
No, because I
like,
said
bro,
sleeping is good.
Yeah, well, sleeping is good, but yeah, you're right. It's more the PTs that are big on it. So,
yeah.
Her apology tour starts tomorrow. So yeah,
you can follow my Instagram business page at Solid Foundation PT, or my personal is at dr.anne.dpt. And then you can also email me, Anne at solidfoundationpt.com.
We'll link it and stuff. It might not be the following that Rogan gives to other people or Mr. Beast, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
And it's always...
And if I'm just going to say it on the podcast.
Yeah.
So if anybody from your viewers reach me, they get 25% off their evaluation.
Use code Infinite Wellness at checkout.
Just tell me that you found me through this podcast.
Yeah.
I'll hook you up.
2 people coming in. Well, hopefully it grows, and as it grows, like it's people like Anne that help us really kind of extend the outreach and hopefully give you all more insight into where you should be looking, what you should be looking at depending on your situation. But yeah, it'll be great. And then I'm sure you all get to see me tell my story and my road to getting better through the homework she gives me and stuff too. So hopefully 5th time's the charm with the 5th PT, but also that was on me because I was so lazy. And also people moved away or businesses closed down. So some of those weren't my fault. But this time we got the momentum, we're rolling. So
and the more PTs you work with, the more you understand more about your body in a different lens. So it's cool. All good.
We get other I know we have a pelvic floor specialist.
Oh, amazing.
We would love to interview, and then just even if we get some other people in too that work with
I have other people that I can give you their contacts.
Maybe they'll give some inflammatory statements, and then you can be like,
we can have a debate.
We're back on. Yeah, like today's the round table.
Yeah.
Anne versus so and so, and we're going to be dispelling kind of which side what, just like the Meekins and Brooks. You said?
No, it's Chad Cook.
Chad Cook.
You should listen to that. I'm going to send you that podcast.
Well, and we'll tag everything and stuff too, so it'll be good.
Thank you.
But thank you guys. This was the first in person, so
thanks so much for inviting me.
Yes. Thank you for coming to our beautiful podcast studio in the middle of LA. No, not really. We're just in Orange County.
We're not just. We're in Orange County.
We're in Orange County. Yeah. So if you got a problem with that, come fight us. But I think everything we said was pretty neutral for the most part. It depends. That's going to be the theme.
I know that would be the title of the podcast. Yeah. It depends.
But that's it. 3 scoops. We're out. Thanks, guys. Bye.